Midday Newsline with Glenn Carter.
Good afternoon. The battle ended last night for 3-year-old Kaitlin Atkinson. The Kemptville youngster died at 8 o'clock, 28 hours after heart-lung transplant surgery at Pittsburgh's Children's Hospital. Her parents were with her when she passed away. Midday Newsline's Leanne Cusack tells us more about this courageous little girl who didn't have the strength to fight any longer.
She was a beautiful little girl who stole the hearts of those who knew her and won the hearts of complete strangers. Kaitlin Atkinson spent almost a year fighting for life. The triplet had a rare disease that hardens the lungs and puts pressure on the heart. A heart-lung transplant in Pittsburgh was her only hope for survival, but it wasn't enough. Hours after the surgery, her new heart stopped. She was placed on a special machine to keep her alive.
Unfortunately, this technology was not enough to sustain her. The Atkinsons are most appreciative of the friends, family, and well-wishers who have kept Kaitlin in their thoughts and prayers.
Kaitlin's parents were by her side when she passed away. They released a statement thanking the many people who helped support them through their 9-month ordeal. Kaitlin would have had a 4th birthday next week. Through all of the tragedy, the Atkinson family can find some consolation. Kaitlin has given life to a critically ill child in upstate New York. Kaitlin's heart was transplanted on Monday. Leanne Cusack, CJOH News.
Another fishing protest is underway in Nova Scotia. This time it's a processing plant in Lunenburg where about 40 fishermen are blocking the entrance to the plant where a Russian ship unloaded fish this week. In Shelburne, support is pouring in for fishermen who have blockaded a giant Russian trawler. Town officials say phone calls have been coming in from across Canada and parts of the U.S. That protest enters its 6th day, but there is some hope for settlement there. Federal officials will meet today with organizers of the protest. Federal Fisheries Minister Ross Reed wouldn't call the talks negotiations when he appeared on Canada AM this morning. But he did say that the agenda is flexible for the talks.
The agenda is wide open. It is a meeting to discuss what needs to be discussed, and we'll see how it goes from there. I mean, Keith, I'd like to end this thing.
Sure.
I'd like, as best I can, to be able to address the concerns of those fishermen. They face some very difficult times that we in Newfoundland have seen, and times that people across the region have seen, and unfortunately we'll see more of.
A year ago next month, an Ottawa policeman shot one man and killed his brother. Ontario Special Investigation Unit is still studying the incident. It has not said whether Constable David Nurse will be charged. The shooting happened in this Lower Town high-rise and left 35-year-old Frank Chartier dead with a bullet in the heart. His younger brother, Jacques, has recovered from a gunshot wound to the shoulder. The Chartier family declined comment, but the policeman's lawyer calls the delay in this case a travesty of justice.
I think once a decision is made, this will at least put everything to rest. Once they articulate the reasons for making their decision, I think that's key at this point. The public has a right to know, and it's long overdue.
On the international front, Israel was to have silenced its guns targeted at South Lebanon today to give villagers a chance to flee to safer ground to the north. But some witnesses said the shelling continued this morning, the 4th day of an Israeli assault against suspected PLO bases in South Lebanon. The shelling has created tens of thousands of refugees.
Day 4 of Operation Accountability and no quiet on the front, as Israel is pounding dozens of villages in southern Lebanon with heavy artillery and precision bombing. Here, an F-16 strikes at a village whose residents had been warned to evacuate. More than 150,000 Lebanese have now fled their homes, most heading north towards Beirut. And that is what Israel intended, a flood of refugees to put pressure on Lebanon to suppress the Hezbollah guerrillas who use southern Lebanon as their base. Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin has repeated his pledge that there will be no peace and quiet for Lebanon if there is no quiet in northern Israel.
Israel is interested in security and tranquility on both sides of the border.
In the meantime, the Israeli government, faced with mounting international pressure, continues to say this operation will not last much longer.
I think we are talking in terms of days, not weeks, not months.
In fact, the intensity of the assault seems to have slowed the guerrilla rocket attacks on northern Israel, even though many innocent Lebanese civilians are having to pay the price. Mark Litsky, ABC News, Tel Aviv.
Residents of the flooded American Midwest are wondering today how long the levees will last. The Missouri and Kansas rivers have peaked. Now the sandbag barriers are all that stand in the way of thousands of homes and businesses and huge tracts of farmland being flooded. The good news is drier weather is expected, and in the washed-out states, they will take any good news they can get.
In Grafton, Illinois, the bills are piling up. Overtime for work to save the water plant, the fire department, to run the city boats that carry residents stranded by high water.
We probably got $18,000 in that, and that don't sound like much money to Chicago, but to little old Grafton, that's a lot of money, and we keep just mounting bills and mounting bills right now.
The bills are just going to get bigger when the water goes down. The visitor center will need thousands of dollars worth of repair, as will the sewer plant and water plant and city streets now under 18 feet of water. It is a story repeated up and down the Mississippi River Valley. Airports, sewer plants, roads and bridges are water damaged. A big problem in smaller towns, they may lose part of their tax base. They'll need to fix city services when residents frightened by floods refuse to return. A recent federal emergency management meeting drew in dozens of Missouri River town officials anxious to get federal help. The best they can get, though, is 75% of the cost to repair public property. The rest they'll have to find on their own. Erin Hayes, ABC News, Grafton, Illinois.
Thousands of people were expected to attend mass rallies in Italy today to protest the latest wave of bomb attacks there. 3 firefighters, a police officer, and a civilian died when a car exploded in Milan. 20 people were injured. Just under 50 minutes later, another blast shook central Rome. A car bomb damaged the back of a church used by the Pope in his role as Bishop of Rome. John Paul toured the damaged site today. A second blast in Rome destroyed part of a 7th century church. Nearly 20 people were hurt in those explosions. No one has claimed responsibility yet. Italy's main labor groups call for rallies and a general strike to denounce the assault. The Boston Celtics and the rest of professional basketball are mourning today the death of one of their own. Celtics captain Reggie Lewis died yesterday in Boston after collapsing for the second time in 3 months while on the court. The 27-year-old was shooting baskets at the team's practice facility when he was stricken. Lewis collapsed during an NBA playoff game in late April, but there was differing medical opinions on whether he had a heart problem. And here's a story with a happy ending. It begins with a ferry ride off the coast of British Columbia and a man who fell overboard. He survived, and his story is bizarre.
Just pure luck. I mean, there were so many things. The jacket helped a lot. The warm water helped so much. There were just so many things that were in my favor.
He drifted all night long with the tide, watching shooting stars on a crystal clear night. He was sick when he fell off the Queen of Vancouver at about 11:30 at the northern end of Active Pass. It was 7:15 Monday morning at the north end of Orcas Island when he was spotted by a sports fisherman and rescued.
When the sun was coming up, when I had been in the cold water, I realized how cold it was. I knew my hands were numb and my feet and my legs were numb. And I started to drift a bit, I guess. I always knew that I was looking for activity and looking for boats moving or looking for people on shore. That's how close I was, and that's why it was so frustrating.
Bob Lord was on the second deck, the higher deck of the Queen of Vancouver, when he felt very ill. He went upstairs and got some bromo, came back downstairs and got sick in his truck. He then got out of his truck and walked towards one of the large windows on the car deck. He says he retched violently, leaning far over, and he fell into the water. Linda Lord and daughters Devon, age 7, and Kate, who is 3, are thankful that Bob made it.
I try not to think about what could have happened, so we're just being very thankful that he's safe and that he was strong enough and the water was warm enough.
Bob Lord says that his watch is still ticking. Later on in the show, financial advice from Heather Snipper, and when we come back, Kathy's here with a look at how some kids are having fun today, and tell us about the weather. We'll be back in about 30 seconds. Children aged 6 to 12 are in Canada recuperating from the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. They were staying with host families for 6 weeks. Today they got acquainted with Canadian RCMP. They went for wagon rides and bounced in the hay. And they also learned a thing or two about what a blacksmith does. Picnic was organized by Bell Northern Research. Speaking of happy and smiling kids today, that's where we find our Kathy.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you guys have anything to say?
Hi.
All these kids claim to know you. It is the Smile Festival at the Terry Fox Athletic Facility just next to Mooney's Bay Beach, Glen. And all the kids here are from the parks around the city of Ottawa, the day camps. And the slightly older people are the leaders in training who are training to be counselors for next year's day camps. So it's a great day of puppet shows and water slides and crafts and lots of fun here at Terry Fox. And it will be going on all afternoon. Current temperature now stands at 27 degrees with the wind out of the southwest, very light, at 5 kilometers per hour. It's quite a muggy day. Pressure is steady, and the UV index will be high this afternoon at 8.2. Take a look around the region for you at the current temperatures. Partly cloudy conditions, Maniwaki and Pembroke this hour. Sunshine into Montreal, as well as Kingston, Trenton, and Watertown. All of that will change as the day progresses, though. We have a disturbance approaching, and that's going to give us a mix of sun and cloud here in Ottawa for the afternoon. Take a look at the satellite shot for you and put it into motion. We have a disturbance back over Thunder Bay and a warm front in through Toronto, and that will introduce the cloud. We expect a chance of, a really good chance, actually, of showers later this evening, likely around 10 or 11 o'clock, and we'll develop thunder showers in the overnight hours as well. 19 for the low, so it'll stay on the muggy side. Move the map ahead to tomorrow. That low pressure system right with us, at least for the next 3 or 4 days anyway. It looks like daytime highs will be close to about 25 degrees. Take a look at the 5-day forecast for you. It seems to repeat itself pretty much over the next couple of days. Showers developing late this evening with an overnight low near 19. Tomorrow, look for showers, thunder showers possible, a high of 25, and then scattered showers as that low progresses slowly to the east, Glen, and daytime highs through the weekend at about 25 degrees.
KD?
Yes?
You're not the only chaperone there today, are you?
No. There are a few others, but it's kind of a free-for-all kids' day here. It's a lot of fun. Everybody seems to be enjoying themselves.
Thank goodness for that. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later in the show.
Catch up to you later.
Okay. Later on in the broadcast, some advice to help you choose the right babysitter, speaking of kids. And when we come back, City of Ottawa Union say that they have already paid enough for the social contract. Anger over reports the government plans on dipping into the tills of non-profit organizations. The government had earlier confirmed Liberal accusations that it plans to grab millions of dollars in donations from groups like the Red Cross as part of the social contract. But this morning, Ray said his government won't be touching a nickel of charitable donations, reversing his government's position. The government still hasn't ruled out funding clawbacks from organizations that receive money from the government. Here at home, City of Ottawa Union say that when it comes to the social contract, they have already paid enough. Erin McKelvey on that.
Hi there. Hi. City of Ottawa workers haven't had a raise in 2 years. Their union insists that's enough of a sacrifice to exempt them from the social contract.
My membership's pay scales have been frozen at 1991 rates. And so we've already paid our dues. We've had our own social contract with the city. And all we've asked the minister, like I said before, was to consider that for 1993.
After a trip to Toronto to press that case at Queen's Park, Union Brass put the odds of dodging provincial cutbacks at 50-50, even though the Premier's office promised only to consider their plea. At City Hall, it's a standoff between Ottawa and its 1,700 inside and outside workers. No talks to trim the city payroll are scheduled. If it stays that way, the social contract kicks in this weekend. And with no help from the mayor to plead Ottawa's case at Queen's Park, the unions are not in a talkative mood.
One of the main problems is developing a sense of trust and working together as a partnership. And had we gone together, I think that would have gone a long way towards that. But it seems we're still in separate camps, and it's certainly not conducive to really successful negotiations.
Erin McKelvey, CJOH News.
The newly formed National Party has acclaimed a candidate for the upcoming federal election in Lanark. Carleton is Jacques Rybacha, the operator of a bed and breakfast in Poland, just west of Carleton Place. Rybacha is a former deputy reeve. He's the party's first candidate chosen in Eastern Ontario. Well, it seems it is a frequent theme, residents struggling to maintain their neighborhood against the threat of development that they don't want. Well, it's being played out again, this time in Ambleside Park in West End, Ottawa. Last night, about 500 people from the area heard about a city plan which, if approved, could turn their green space into another high-rise. Not surprisingly, they're giving it a thumbs down. Matt Cowan on that.
Ambleside Park, quiet, green, and a potentially surplus park according to the Ottawa Property Department. What's that mean? Well, it means if City Council agrees this park is no longer needed, it will be sold and likely made into another high-rise like its neighbors. The meeting at Woodruff High School was the residents' first chance to voice their opinion on the proposal, but the meeting was so large their first opinion they voiced was to take it outside. Once things got settled, city officials got a chance to explain the rationale behind abandoning green space for dollars.
That's the rationale.
They are not technically surplus right now. They are considered not being used at full utilization by our Department of Recreation and Culture. Council asked us to come and find out how the public would react if we declared it surplus.
To put it in the simplest of terms, the sentiment is, do not touch our park.
The response from community organizations was quick and blunt.
You can just see how excited, how angry people are that this property would even be on the list. Even that seems like a betrayal of trust.
And in this particular case, this land should be rezoned P for public use and state parkland.
Already, Richmond Ward Councillor Alex Cullen and the City Mayor Jacqueline Holtzman have come out on side of these playground protesters. But it won't be until late September before Council hear the Property Department's official report. Matt Cowan, CJOH News.
Some business notes. Ford and Chrysler in the U.S. had a good quarter. Ford doubled its performance in terms of earnings. Chrysler quadrupled its showing for the second quarter. Chrysler had a net loss of more than $3 billion for the year to date, however, due to one-time charges. And PWA Corporation, which owns Canadian Airlines, lost $130 million in the second quarter. Anxiety over choosing a babysitter, but it doesn't have to be an exercise steeped in fear and concern. There are ways to ensure the person you're hiring to look after your kids is the right person for the job. First installment today of a two-part series on picking a babysitter.
Carol and her husband Rick are leaving their 2-year-old twins with their 16-year-old neighbor Kara, who babysits for the children often. It's Kara's job to get the kids settled as their parents prepare to leave.
Bye.
Some parents won't use traditional babysitters at all.
I have a problem trusting anybody with my most prized possession. We're afraid. We only leave her with family or one very good friend.
But experts tell us you don't have to be afraid. If parents do their homework, they can find a good babysitter outside the family.
You want the person to be very reliable and a responsible person, and one that is trained. For example, trained in being able to recognize when an emergency might occur.
The Red Cross offers first aid courses, especially for babysitters.
It taught you how to do the Heimlich maneuver and CPR to a baby and to an adult.
So where do you find these trustworthy, responsible babysitters? Well, a recommendation from other parents or neighbors is probably the most tried and true method, but there are many more resources. Many churches can recommend trusted babysitters. Try the pediatrician's office. There are often names posted in the waiting rooms. Your local YMCA or YWCA often has a child care service. Look at the bulletin boards in your local library. And you can even try the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. How old should the sitter be? The answer may surprise you.
We start them at age 11.
She says some 11-year-olds are responsible. Some 30-year-olds are not. Use your judgment. And don't rule out boys.
All these women are saying, oh, women's lib, what about us,
We've had many young men go through our program, and they make wonderful babysitters.
Saying something is key to a good babysitting relationship. Parents must communicate their expectations to the babysitter before he or she starts working. Babysitters should know a little about the people they are sitting for, and they have definite preferences about who should take them home.
Sometimes I felt more comfortable with the mothers.
Establishing a good relationship between the parents, babysitters, and the children takes time and work. And the better the relationship, the less likely this kind of scene will be. Kelly Mack for NBC News.
Right? Well, often we neglect our financial stakes. Heather Snipper is here to tell us why that isn't a good idea, and that's certainly not a way to ensure financial health I like to take the summer and forget about that kind of stuff. What kind of things should we be checking on throughout the summer?
Well, I think it's always a good idea basically to do what I call a check-in. Most people tend to look at finances at the beginning or the end of the year for those who actually do it. And it's always a good idea halfway through the year to see how your plans are going. And a lot of things can change, too. I mean, you can move, you can have a new addition to the family, you can lose an addition to a family, a child moves out on their own. So all these kinds of things, I think, really have a huge impact on your financial situation, virtually from one day to the next. And it's a good idea to check them out.
A lot of people do keep information, and they track how things are going and so on with their investments, but I guess the important thing is what you do with that information. That's right. It's not just a matter of sitting down and saying, oh, well, I still have this particular investment, and this GIC is still over here, and this bank account's here. It's more than that. It's, financial health and financial fitness, and it's also taking them and saying, is this investment doing well? How long have I had it for? Has it been doing well for that period of time? Could be time for some minor or even some major changes. And, checking things halfway through the year will give you a good idea of oh,
of
gee,
the tracking
my
process.
Portfolio just dropped about 15%.
That's
Good
right.
thing I know that.
That's right. Now what do I do about it? These are all the kinds of things that people should be aware of. Now, having said this, of course, it doesn't mean that every 6 months you have to make changes in your portfolios, even if they aren't doing as well as you would like. Sometimes if we're in a down market, your portfolio is probably doing as poorly as everybody else's, and it doesn't necessarily mean making wild changes is going to improve the situation overnight. But it does tell you if you're on the right track or not. And doing something from year to year also gives you an indication, if you compare to the previous year, if you're going up or down. And obviously, if you're going down, then something needs to be changed.
I need a lot of help with stuff like that. When people do need help, who would they turn to? Somebody like yourself? Or,
Certainly, a financial planner. Some of the banks now are offering, these little financial quizzes where you can go in and fill out a little form and see how your financial health is. But I would have to say, generally speaking, financial planners are the person you would turn to.
Okay, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Some financial advice tonight on Newsline as well. Caroline Meehan looks at buying or leasing a new car, which is the best option for you. Also at 6, the treasures you'll find up the Gatineau on a family outing, and learn about Ottawa's unique Festival of Smiles at 6 here on CJOH TV. Oh, and a note, Ottawa police are asking motorists to stay away from the Hunt Club Bridge for the next several hours. An accident there has cut power to traffic lights. Police say it will take time to clear the accident and restore power. They suggest motorists use Hogsback instead of Hunt Club Bridge. And speaking of Festival of Smiles, let's go back to Katie.
That's where we are, Glenn, at the Terry Fox Arena. The kids have finished lunch and they're on their way now. Looks like a great afternoon, too, for the festival with a high near about 27, 28 degrees should do it. Pretty muggy, though. We look for the clouds to roll in and late evening showers. Thunder showers possible overnight with a low of 19 and back up to 25 with showers tomorrow.
Thanks, Katie.
See you later.
Thank you for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Nurses, Saturdays at 8:30 on CJOH.